Monday night! My apologies for being away for a couple of weeks. In case you missed it Friday, some personal issues came up and I ended up in the hospital for about a week. Since then, I've been on the road to recovery. I promise you, we are back and we are getting back on track. We released a Faith Around and Find Out show this past Friday, and we're keeping with the Young Earth Takedowns on Monday here. That being said, hi everyone! My co-host, the Audio Clip Demon, tells we have a very special night in store for us, and he has been preparing this specially for me and the return of the regulars routine. All I know is that we got a couple of guests returning, Frank Turek and William Lane Craig. Well, you know we've had them on.
Shut up, dear furry!
The question of the age of the universe is one on which Christians differ. There is a very tiny minority of Christians today who believe that the world was created some 10 to 20,000 years ago. Obviously, from what I've said this evening, I don't agree with that.
Is this real life?
Speak up!
Sorry, holy crap, sorry. I honestly wasn't expecting this from the Young Earth Takedown. I'm actually about to side with two Christians. Hold on. Now April Fool's was like a month ago. This can't actually be serious. Okay, well, for a change, I will just let ACD take it away and lead us on what I can only think of is going to be the strangest Young Earth shit show that we've had so far.
You're in my house, bitch!
How old is the universe? Let me say I'm absolutely certain, Jose, the universe is at least 56 years old.
For me, it would be only a little younger than that. I'm 52, so there's that. At some point, I'll do a quick face reveal on the channel, but not now. For now, I just want to see what Frank has to say on this. I think I'm going to really like this.
If you think the Earth is old, you're assuming the speed of light has not changed. If the speed of light hasn't changed, the universe is 13.8 billion years old. If it has changed, we don't know how old the universe is. Now, is it a good assumption to say the speed of light has not changed? Yeah, probably. Why? Because if you change the speed of light, you have to change all the other laws of physics with it.
Oh, God, yes. Frank's right on the money. You see, as the cosmological constant, the speed of light shows up in all manner of physics, like gravitational attraction and orbital mechanics. If the speed of light was different or went differently in other directions, gravity itself would act way different. Here's something to think about. If the sun, for whatever reason, vanished from existence in the blink of an eye, we would not know about it for 8.5 minutes. Up until that point, the Earth would still be orbiting around a star that isn't there. And when the light from the sun vanishes, we would only then stop orbiting and just move off in the same direction we were currently moving in the first place. Meanwhile, we would see reflected light off of other planets further out for several more minutes. At least until we all freeze to death from a lack of heat from the sun anyway. So, the theory of relativity would make no sense, and all the maths that went into that wouldn't be the same if the speed of light were not a constant. So for young earthers that think the speed of light is something to play around with, I'd strongly suggest doing a little bit more than a cursory research on the topic.
How about salt in the ocean? The deposition rate is assumed to be unchanged. The beginning amount of salt and minerals is assumed to be 0. Some folks who think the Earth is young have tried to use this to say that the Earth is young, but now again, you're making assumptions you can't prove.
What the hell is going on here?
What? They say insane shit all the time. How was I supposed to know this one was true?
But Frank is correct again. We don't know how much salt the oceans started out with, if they started out with any. But one thing we do know and can find out is the salt cycle. Yes, there is a salt cycle. Rivers will slowly erode salt from the rocks of rivers and will carry that to the oceans. So what young earthers will like to dump out is, why aren't the oceans saltier? To them, they don't understand how salt gets out of the oceans. This is rather simple to explain, in short, and complex as hell if you get into the big details. I'll take a shorter route as it seems I'm getting signals from the audio clip demon that we still have a bit to get through today. Salt is ingested by oceanic creatures. It gets into their flesh and bones. When they die, they are consumed by bigger fish, or they settle to the bottom of the ocean. At the bottom, they end up as sediment on the seafloor, buried and taken out of the overall salinity. Over millions and millions of years, the ocean floor pushes under other tectonic plates, and the continental uplift happens. Other times, there isn't enough uplift, and oceans will spread out over the continent. When uplift then occurs, it leaves a huge area separated from the ocean, but still salty. The water evaporates and leaves at times a huge salt flat that gets covered in more material or to be buried away. Salt flats can occur in places like the Dead Sea or in Lake Bonneville in Utah, which dried up, making the Utah salt flats. In general, the oceans will become more and less saltier over time, but generally the sedimentary depositing of the salt evens out with the flow of the salt in, establishing an equilibrium.
How about carbon dating, what you brought up, or radioactive dating? The decay rate is assumed to be unchanged. In uranium dating, the beginning amount of lead is assumed to be 0. Now, these may all be good assumptions, but they're just that. They're assumptions.
Again, correct. Frank is right on the money here, for the most part. Yes, we assume the starting lead is 0, or the starting of every method is 0 when it is feasible to do so. The reason why, simple. If you start with a 0, you can establish the baseline for the oldest a thing can be. But uranium-lead has a double check with a different chain. 2 chains are the uranium series and the actinium series. 2 different uranium isotopes decaying into 2 different lead isotopes. This gives us a date range when we compare the two to narrow down a smaller date range so we can try to be as accurate as possible. Hey, ACD? Where the hell is he going with all of this?
Do not be afraid.
Okay, well, let's have it then.
Now, does the Bible teach a young universe? Many Christians will say absolutely yes. Others will say no. Let me ask you guys a question. What does the first verse of the Bible say? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Okay, when did God create the heavens and the earth? In the beginning. Does it say when? No, it just says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. You say, whoa, whoa, whoa. What about the days? Well, the days don't begin to verse 3. In fact, all the days begin with the phrase, and God said, right? If you want to take a real, literal interpretation of Genesis, the heavens and the earth are created before the days ever begin. The days could just be an expression of how God did it, or it could be an expression of God preparing the heavens and the earth for their use.
That's right. In fact, if you open your Bible up, those Christians that are watching, pause now, get your Bible out, open to Genesis chapter 1, and have a look at this, because Frank here is spot on. You young earthers out there, you too, pause now and get it out. Okay, good. Bible's out. Time for an atheist to really help school the young earthers. Verses 1 and 2 state the initial creation, but if you look carefully now, at verse 3, it starts with, and God said. What Frank didn't mention was the last words in verses 5, 8, 13, 23, and the last verse, 31. Each of them end with, and there was evening and there was morning on the whatever day, followed by the very next verse again opening with, and God said. So the days really don't start until verse 3. So the first 2 verses of the Bible are telling you straight up that even if you take the days to be literal, there is a time before the first day where God created the earth and it sat there. Checkmate, young earthers. Even if I don't believe the Bible is true at all, even biblically, the young earth doctrine is wrong.
Stay tuned.
There's more?
Yes!
Oh, I got big ears for a reason, ACD. Let's have it.
the point here is that since the initial creation happened before day one, my view is the Bible doesn't say how old the universe is. Now, even if you think that days do have something to do with the age of the universe, the word day in Genesis could mean longer periods of time. In fact, it has 4 possible usages in the first chapter and a half. It could mean 24 hours. It could also mean 12 hours. Why? He says he called the light day and the darkness night. In that sense, it's 12 hours. It could be a era, a period. Like if I were to say that Peyton Manning was a good quarterback in his day, you wouldn't think he was good for just 24 hours, right? You would think that's an era. And there's a 4th usage I'll get to in a minute.
This is a popular way to talk about Genesis 1 from a more scientific point of view, taking the entire chapter as allegorical. In fact, even young earth creationists will admit there are parts of the Bible that are indeed allegorical. So why do young earthers take Genesis 1 literally? They want to feel special?
Yes!
Is it knowledge that most people don't believe?
Maybe.
Some honestly think this is possible?
Nailed it!
Who knows? At times it depends on the creationist, and they will never admit what drives them to it or to ignore the facts in front of them. But whatever they choose, they will usually differ in how they make up the excuses to prove it.
Also, the 3rd day seems to require longer than 24 hours, the growth of vegetation and fruit-bearing plants. Even if you put Miracle Grow on that stuff, it doesn't grow that quickly. You say, well, maybe God sped it up. Now again, you might be right, but you're making assumptions you can't prove. The 6th day seems to require longer than 24 hours, the naming of the animals. In fact, Adam begins to name the animals late in the 6th day. Doesn't seem like he'd have enough time to name them all. There were a lot of animals even in his day. And here's the 4th usage of the word day. The 7th day is longer because it hasn't ended yet. You realize we're in the 7th day right now, according to Hebrews 4? We're still in the 7th day. Well, that day's longer than 24 hours. Maybe the other days. We just don't know.
From a biblical point of view, Frank's good here. God is supposed to have made a lot of animals, and there is a lot of animals around here right now. If young earthers are to be believed, and all the animals we see now, plus all the dinosaurs people like Kent Hovind think were on the ark, what about dinosaurs we haven't discovered yet? There are 700 species of dinosaur we know about, and there's more species of spider than that. We have thousands upon thousands of species that all need names. Even if Adam made a new name every second for an entire 24-hour period, he would need almost 2 weeks to name just the ones we have discovered. We believe that's not even a quarter of the creatures we have here on Earth currently, not to mention the ones that have gone extinct and the entire class of dinosaurs. Now, Frank brought up the 7th day, that we're still biblically in the 7th day. Hebrews chapter 4 verse 1 says, "Therefore, since the promise of entering his rest still stands, let us be careful that none of you to be found are fallen short of it." Entering his rest. God is resting. So biblically, we are currently in the 7th day of God's creation, meaning that even biblically, young earth is bullshit.
No, you don't get to end this.
William Lane Craig has more?
Absolutely!
Oh, this I gotta hear. By all means, ACD, I am in your capable hands.
That there are hints in the text itself that a 24-hour day creation week is not contemplated by the author. Notice how God creates the vegetation and the fruit trees on day 3. God says, he doesn't say, let there be fruit trees, let there be vegetation, and it was so. The text says, and God said, let the earth bring forth vegetation, bearing seed after its kind, and fruit trees bearing fruit after its kind. And it was so. The earth brought forth. Unless you think that the author contemplated a process that looks like a film being run on fast forward, where the tree sprouts out of the ground and grows up and sprouts out apples and they pop out all over it, so that this happens in 24 hours. This must have been a long period of time in which these trees and vegetation would grow and flower and mature and finally produce fruit. So that would be just one other indication.
Sorry guys, he can be a little long-winded.
Yeah.
But he does make a valid point when it comes to the Bible, and really it can be applied to the entire chapter. What I want you to imagine is this. Picture in your head the events of Genesis chapter 1 on high speed with yakety sax playing in the background. There's an image you'll never get out of your head again. The events of some of the days as described in Genesis chapter 1 would have to take more than 12 hours or 24 hours depending on your definition of day. In his sense, the earth sprouting up the trees and whatnot. The verse is verse 11, and in the NIV it reads, "Then God said, let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it according to their various kinds. And it was so." Like William said, the Bible doesn't say God made the trees or God created the trees in the land. It says for the land to produce vegetation. It would take some time for that to happen unless you want the ground to just erupt in jetting shoots of plant matter. Along the same lines, the Bible doesn't say how the animals were created, just let the water teem with living creatures and let birds fly, let the land produce living creatures. So God could have said he created the creatures and created the fish and created the birds by causing the land and water to evolve them. In fact, all the way through the chapter, God is not snapping his fingers. It's saying he is allowing the universe to produce these things. This goes all the way back when I described chapter 1 to fit with the Big Bang cosmology. This argument also holds true for Kent's precious King James mockery of the text. It reads and uses the same language. So in essence, it is more likely that even biblically the earth is not young, and a large number of theists will disagree with people like Kent and Eric Hovind.
Yes!
ACD, what have you been doing this whole time that I have been gone, that you found this?
Important things.
Evidently. This was a wonderful experience, but I'm sure our followers appreciated us getting back online as soon as we could.
Well, let me just say you're correct.
For now, let's take off and get started with the next Faith Around and Find Out Friday. We want to come back here with a bang.
Let's do this.
That's the spirit. I am Corsi, and this is the Fluffy Atheist. Pet those like and subscribe buttons, and we'll see you at the end of the week with Faith Around and Find Out Friday. See ya.